Hello, hello, it's me, Arden Lee, and I am back again today with another video. And today I want to talk about why it is inadvisable to go through a hoe phase while you are on the path to personal and or spiritual growth. First, I would love to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you've been enjoying my videos, and let me know in the comments what you want to hear more of. Give me some suggestions, and I'm here to help you out. I'm here to raise everyone's vibe. And let me know what you're curious about, and I'd love to stay connected, and I'd love to be in your feed. So go ahead and smash that button if you have not already. I love how I'm saying smash that button when I'm talking about not hoeing it up during your personal growth. First of all, I want to say something important, which is that I am really passionate about the importance of sex positivity. I believe that our culture of sex negativity, of sexual shame, is extremely harmful and damaging, and I invite everyone to be able to explore their sexual freedom. The reason that I'm talking about this particular subject today is it's something that came up on Twitter a little while ago. There was someone else who made a tweet about going through a hoe phase while you're on a spiritual path. I don't think so, or whatever, and I retweeted that. And I got some flack for it at the time from people who believed that I was being sex negative. But I'd like to unpack more about what I meant by that and why it's important. And really it has to do with the energy that you are letting into your field and how you are feeling about things. Because one of the most important things that you are going to learn on the path toward your spiritual growth is discernment and emotional self-mastery. And what emotional self-mastery really comes down to, and we've kind of been touching on this in the last several videos, it really comes down to the ability to tell when something feels good versus when something does not feel good. What you want in your field and what you don't want in your field. And I find it extremely difficult to do that when you have so many attachments from the people that you are letting into your energy field by engaging with them sexually. It's not that sex itself is bad. Sex is great. Sex is sacred, and sex can be, I don't even mean sex is sacred like, oh, you should save it for marriage. I mean that sex is an incredibly powerful act. It's something that is incredibly powerful in creating intimacy, in creating bonds, and it's incredibly powerful as a manifestation tool. It's incredibly powerful as something that feeds our souls. But because it is so powerful, it's so possible to create attachments when sex happens. And we've talked about this, maybe not us on this channel yet, although that would be a great video. But that is something that we talk about in our culture, is that idea that so often good sex is mistaken for love. It's mistaken for compatibility. It is mistaken for the foundation of a relationship. And now I'm not saying that you should settle for a relationship where there isn't good sex, because I believe that you deserve everything that you want and that good sex is really important to a relationship too. But sometimes when we get that fix, when we get that fix that we're craving of that rush, that high, that new relationship energy with someone, we are so often willing to ignore all of the other factors that come along with it, like whether that person is actually good for us, whether that person is supportive of us, is affectionate toward us. And our feelings can get complicated, especially when there is so much sex negativity in society. That means that a lot of times the people that we're with are going to have complex feelings because they're not sure how to deal with their feelings about sex either, because there is so much shame in the world. And there are people who will take advantage of you, who will see you as someone who can supply a fix for them, who will see you as having less value. And that sucks. That's not something that I'm sitting here saying that we should excuse. I'm just saying that oftentimes that is the way that it is in the society that we live in, that currently has incredibly negative attitudes towards sex. So I'm not saying don't go out and have sex with people. But when you're on a path to spiritual growth and you're learning discernment and you're learning emotional self-mastery and you're learning what is really important to you and you're learning all of those values that you do not want to compromise on, and you're making sure that you are creating a sustainable life for yourself that is rooted in things that make you happy, it is so much easier to do that without people coming along and supplying you with something that you end up willing to potentially compromise for. So it's actually not about sex itself. It's about a lack of discrimination, a lack of discernment. Because essentially, this tweet that was saying, oh, a hoe phase while you're on a spiritual path, I don't think so, is not talking about the value of sex in spirituality. It's talking about being non-discriminatory, being non-discerning. Because a hoe phase ultimately is not just about the amount of sex you're having, but about the fact that you are granting access to a lot of different energies into your field. And I just talked in the last video, if you saw it already. I'm not sure if it's the last one or the one before, but the one about your media diet. With your media diet, are you exposing yourself to energies that are positive, or are you exposing yourself to imagery that is traumatizing? News reports that are depressing. Are you exposing yourself to energies that are nourishing and fulfilling and supportive of your growth, even while staying informed? Or is it a constant barrage of depressing and traumatizing imagery from politics and war and worries about all the horrors and the atrocities going on in the world right now? What are you exposing yourself to? And in that video, I talked a little bit about the experiments of Dr. Masaru Emoto, who studied rice and water ice crystals, that were exposed to either a barrage of compliments and positive support and verbal affirmations versus bullying and insults and negativity verbally. And even water and rice will respond differently. It will rot differently. It will crystallize differently, as I said in that video. So what I'm really talking about when I talk about don't be non-discriminatory when you're on the path to spiritual growth is watch what energies you are exposing yourself to. And because we live in such a sex negative culture, it is so easy for so many negative energies to get projected on you when you are having sex with someone. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone that's out there. There are people out there who are so conflicted about their own needs and their own sexual desires and their own sexualities that even just by engaging in that arena with you, they can start to project their own fears and their own shame onto you just because you are in that arena with them. So it's really not about sex. It's about making sure that the people, the energies you're surrounding yourself with are ones that are positive. Now, I also have a lot of friends who are in the poly community, and they have really discerned and curated their lovers, their polycules, their polypods. And they may have a lot of sex and they may have a lot of lovers, but they're being discerning. They're making sure that everyone who they let into their sphere is someone who is going to support them, who is going to be nurturing toward them, who's going to be affectionate toward them, who's not going to just jump into their energy field and project a whole bunch of fear and shame onto them and then leave and create attachments in the meantime so that we become willing to compromise on our values and on our standards and the very things that we are trying to build for ourselves in order to get more of that fix. So that's why I say that going through a hoe phase when you're on the path to spiritual growth is really not the most advisable thing to do. And again, it's not about sex. Now, if you're already in a relationship and you feel that that relationship is very positive for you, of course, it's good for you to stay in that relationship. Many relationships do fall apart when one person is on the path to spiritual growth and another person is not, because there's simply no longer an energetic, compatible match when one person is growing and the other isn't. However, I'm certainly not saying, break up your relationships. I'm certainly not saying don't have sex. I'm simply saying be very discerning about what you allow into your field. And this goes extra so for sex because those attachments get created. And you don't want to have those attachments that are going to tempt you to compromise your values and your standards and your self-care in order to get more of that fix. Now, there's one last thing that I need to talk about in this video in order to make sure that I'm covering it, because it would not be complete if I didn't mention sex work. Now, I'm someone who's also very sex work positive. I believe in full decriminalization in order to keep everyone safe. And the other thing that's really necessary to maintaining your positive vibes and maintaining your state and your self-care, in addition to all of the nourishing things that you need to have around you and the people in your life that you need to be supportive and nurturing toward you, is paying your rent. Paying your rent is incredibly important if you're going to be on a path to spiritual growth, because again, you want to create something that is self-sustaining. So what I advise those who choose to do sex work is just make sure that you're sticking to your boundaries, that you're finding clients who respect you and honor you, you're being discerning, and you're not being pulled out of your integrity to do things for more money that you're not actually comfortable with. So I really do support sex workers. I've been in the sex work industry myself. I was a professional dominatrix when I lived in New York, and looking back at that time, I was in my early 20s. I didn't know how to set boundaries so well, and there were definitely a lot of energies that came into that field where it was overwhelming, and it was difficult for me to deal with as someone who didn't understand boundaries very well. So what I would encourage you to do is just make sure you're being treated well, and always keep checking in with your body. Keep checking in with your body, and also remember, if you are going to go down that route, make sure that you're taking that abundance that you're bringing in from engaging in sex work and using it to nourish yourself. There's so many possibilities in the avenues of sex work, in the communities around sex work, and certainly I was exposed to these when I was younger as well, where there's that competition to buy nice things and to show off, to show how much money you're making or whatever, and labels and name brands and all of that. But really, at the end of the day, nothing is more important than the way that you feel and the way that you're setting yourself up for a life that's going to sustain you. So I just really advise you to check in with your body. Make sure that if you are engaging in ways that deplete you, which any work does. This is really a problem with capitalism, and labor, far more than it is with sex. But if you're engaging in any work that depletes you, make sure that it still feels like an even exchange, and that you're using those resources not to keep up with the Joneses or to show off, how much you're making, but that you're using those resources to replenish yourself and create a sustainable system. So essentially, again, I want to repeat, sex is incredibly beautiful and powerful, and it's not something that there needs to be excess dogma around. I think we have too much dogma around sex in this world to begin with. What I do want to emphasize is that it is a very potent way for someone to come into your energy field. And when you're on that path to discernment and really taking care of yourself, you want to be careful with anything you let in your field, whether it's the media you consume, whether it's the foods you consume. You want to make sure that you are always nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself. So when you find those people who nourish you and support you and replenish you and take good care of you and respect you and honor your boundaries and want what's best for you, then absolutely hoe it up with those people all that you want. And there's certainly nothing wrong with having an abundance of sex and also being a very spiritual person. But I really do want to encourage you to use your discernment about who you let into your field, and really check in with your body and make sure you're asking yourself, does this feel good, or is this ultimately making my life more complicated and more painful than it needs to be? So that's the point behind that, and I hope I've covered everything there, but you just want to make sure that you're taking really good care of yourself. And I've never seen anyone go through a hoe phase with discernment. hoe phase, to me, that phrase conjures up a lack of discernment. So we want to be very careful with our discernment. And when we do find those people who support us, then absolutely have all of the sex you want as long as it's serving you. At the end of the day, that is the question to ask is this serving you? So thank you for joining in, and I will see you next time.